guest, our friend, the gentleman who joins us most of the time anyway. Phil Vonada is gonna be the presenter, and he is talking about a book that he got to read recently and that has a lot of relevance, and gonna do a little interactive stuff with you all like we normally try to do. Before we dive into that, I'll also mention that at the end of this month, if you like him so much here, you can see an encore performance at the end of the month that he can tell you about, where he's going to teach us a little bit more in-depth use of the tool Canva, which is where you can make all kinds of great social media graphics, flyers, programs, playbills, whatever you want to make. And then we're kicking off Grange month next month. And if you guys don't have a plan for Grange month for your Grange yet, it's time. So, but you can also check out and see what we're doing to entertain you for that month. So, let me turn this over to Phil.
Yeah, well, hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Amanda. I don't normally present with PowerPoint, so here we go. I'm going to do something new. The gym that I belong to challenges us to be reading books about leadership, about self-motivation, self-reliance, building stronger communities. We don't just believe that the gym is good for your physical health, but that it should be good for your mental health too. So we have a lending library at our gym, which I think is kind of cool. And I wanted what looked like a simple book to read while I was traveling during the month of January. And so I picked a book called Fish, which is actually from the mid-90s. It was first published. So tonight we're going to talk about using the fish philosophy to make your Granges better and to improve your morale and boost results. And I just realized that by doing this, I can't see my notes, which is not helpful. There we go. I got it all covered now. Okay. So the book is called Fish, A Proven Way to Boost Morale and Improve Results by Stephen C. London, Harry Paul, and John Christensen. I feel like I'm leading a version of Reading Rainbow right now. So I do want to start off by saying I am not a certified fish trainer, which is a thing. Fish goes well beyond the book. It is actually a leadership philosophy that you could hire the fish trainers to come into your organization, teach about their work, and do that. So I'm not a fish trainer. I'm required to say that according to their website. So that's my clarification. So this is a parable book. It's based on a semi-true story based on the Pike's Place fish market in Seattle, Washington. So that's where John Christensen, who's one of the authors, first saw fish sellers providing high energy commitment to their jobs, while their work as fishmongers was repetitive and could easily become boring or tedious and exhausting. They were observed to be bringing joy to their job and giving each customer a personalized visit, and their positive approach was credited with allowing the fish market to succeed because customers were willing to come back and engage because they were just really fun people. So the parable in the book recounts a woman who was working for a company that remains unnamed throughout the book because the company itself is not important. And she was doing a good job. And so her boss gave her a promotion to become the manager of an unenthusiastic, unresponsive wasteland of a department that they called a toxic energy dump. So I'm going to ask, how many of you would potentially define, maybe not your Grange, but a Grange that you know, as a toxic energy dump? Some reluctant hands, I see. Some less reluctant hands as well, Amanda. So the toxic energy dump, in my opinion, are Granges who do the bare minimum, who do just enough to scrape by, and who insist that there's no way to change or improve, and they might as well throw in the towel. which, seeing from Amanda's survey, there's at least one person in this, maybe not in this group, but that's here tonight, who, or two people, sorry, who believe that we might as well throw in the towel. I'm not saying that they personally are toxic energy dumps, but they might have that philosophy. So according to a recent Gallup survey, there are 70% of people who say they are not engaged in their work, and that yields productivity plunges, absenteeism, turnovers. And so how many people would say that you have some people who are not engaged in your Grange? People who are there simply as dues payers, people who don't put in the work, who are not engaged. Some more hands, great. So using the fish philosophy will hopefully help instill a new, brighter attitude. So there are 4 principles in the fish philosophy, and they are to choose your attitude, to play, to make their day, and to be there. And we're going to hit each of these as we move through. So we're going to start with choose your attitude. There are multiple times throughout the day when you choose your attitude. You have the power to face your day and to set the tone through your personal attitude. I had that power when I signed on to this meeting. I could have signed on in an antagonistic, I don't want to be here, I'm just doing this because I have to kind of mood, but that's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be as a person. So I didn't have to choose my attitude to be a positive, upbeat person, but you could do that. The way that you wake up in the morning is not the mood that you're stuck with for the entire day. So there's a thing called code switching, which we do often based on the group of people that we're with. And it's kind of the personality that we put on for the people that we're with. You can see it switching between a professional friend group and your family. You can see it switching between, your church family and the people who you go to the dog park with. There's a different way that we interact, and there's a different personality or attitude that we adopt based on who we're hanging out with. There's a work personality, there's a work attitude. If you view your work as a toxic energy dump, you're going to give it a minimum attitude for the day. You're going to give it kind of a poor reflection on your work and on yourself, unfortunately. There's your going to Grange attitude. Do you view going to Grange meetings as a tedious task that has to be done? Or do you view it as, I can make a positive difference by going to this meeting. I can influence people around me. I can influence the work of our Grange by being an upbeat, positive person, and we're going to have a great meeting. And then there's the attitude that you choose in the face of obstacles. And that can be personal obstacles, that can be professional obstacles. You can be the kind of person who goes into fight or flight, or you can be the kind of person who stays and fights for good. So these are all different ways that we choose our attitude. You can choose your attitude based on your environment, the people that you're with, and the way that you want other people's attitudes to reflect. Amanda comes into these meetings with an upbeat attitude, hoping that her positivity is infectious and spreads to other people. Trisha certainly does, Vic certainly does. You're the ones that happen to be on my screen right now. So you're all coming into these meetings with a we can do it attitude. We have the ability and the will to move forward, and we're going to come out stronger because of it. And the thing about choosing your attitude is that it forces you to take responsibility for what life is giving you. Your choice affects others. Is my attitude helping the situation? Is my attitude helping me be a better person? And is it helping our Grange? I think are all questions that we should be asking ourselves. If you get into a tense moment at a Grange meeting for some reason over an issue, a resolution, an event that wasn't successful, or that could have been more successful, you have the choice to look at it as a negative Nancy or as a positive person and say, you know what, you're right, it didn't work. let's look and see how we can improve for next time. Or you can look at it and say, you know what, it was awful, we should never do this again, let's get out of it, let's run away. And as a Grange leader, if you're a president, if you're an officer, if you're even just, you know, a regular attendee at your Grange, you're a Grange leader by showing up. And your attitude inside the Grange is going to affect people's perceptions of the Grange outside of the Grange. And that's true if they're coming to an event, if they are showing up to your takeout dinner. If they walk in and see people griping at each other, if they walk in and see, you know, people yelling at each other back in the kitchen, they're going to walk away with an attitude of, that's not a building that I want to go into again. That's not a group that I want to belong to. But if you adopt the positive, joyous attitude of the fishmongers, it's going to lead to people seeing your Grange as a positive, uplifting place. I know for me, when I volunteer at Eagle Grange, which is one of my Granges, people comment on the fact that we are having fun as we're serving our dinners, because our Grange members are laughing with one another, you know, kind of joking back and forth across the hall as people are walking in. People who aren't Grange members have now become our friends because they recognize the work that we do is making a difference. So, are there any questions about changing or about choosing your attitude? No. Okay, moving on. Play. While yes, play is about fun, it's also about playing with ideas. So you can find play through fun and fellowship, through your friendship and family, and through junior Grange activities, or what I call when I was a kid, which I hear a lot. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to move forward. When I go to other meetings and hear people talk about their time as a junior. Through play, and the idea of play is that there's nothing wrong with having fun. In fact, I encourage it. Tina, who is on, is the lecturer at Russellville Grange, and she recently invited me and my junior ambassadors, and by recently I mean it was back in December, but she invited us down to Russellville to present their program. And as state junior Grange director, I have this thing where I just bring Minute to Win It games with me, because they are the silliest icebreakers in the world. And nothing gets a group of people laughing quite like sticking an Oreo on your forehead and using only your face muscles to get it down to your mouth. You have 60 seconds to do that. You cannot use your hands. Everybody participates. Everybody's laughing by the end of the 60 seconds because it's a stupid game and it breaks the ice. It puts everybody on the same playing field. Nobody's a master at that game. And it's a way that everybody suddenly remembers how to have fun and how to be a kid. You take the same group, you give them one piece of spaghetti, you give them a bowl full of Cheerios, you say use your non-dominant hand, and in 60 seconds, how many Cheerios can you loop onto that piece of spaghetti? And again, they're all laughing, they're having fun. The 5-year-old members are participating right alongside the 95-year-old members. In fact, the 5-year-olds might be doing better. And it's just a moment to break the ice. I find nothing wrong with, when you're in a tense Grange meeting or when you're just in a long Grange meeting, to request a game recess and say, hey, worthy lecturer, do you have a game that we could play right now? Because most of them have something up their sleeve. But play is not just about having fun, it's also about being creative. One way that I'll be talking about in the next issue of Good Day magazine, get your subscription, $16 a year, is using National Grange contests as a starting point for Grange programming. Anne, as lecturer, has a ton of wonderful contests that you can enter. One of them is the garden design contest, which is new this year. And so that can be a creative starting point to invite somebody like a master gardener into your meeting to present a program about designing a garden and have your members work together to design a garden and compete against one another before submitting things to the National Grange. You could invite somebody in to teach how to build a quilt block. We did that at Great Plains Regional last year. They brought a bunch of sewing machines in, they led the workshop, and it was great seeing junior members, youth members, and adults all work together to design the quilt blocks that they would enter in the lecturers contest. And that can also tap into people's personal creativity that they didn't know was there. So many people, have their set ways about them where they wake up in the morning, they go to work, they go home, have dinner, they watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, and they go to bed. And so they forget what it's like to have a hobby and to express creativity in some way that they don't have the opportunity to do. So by bringing creative tactile programming to them is a way to potentially unleash talents that they didn't know that they had. And then finally, I also talk about play in a way to inspire the curious mind. When somebody brings something up at a meeting, a great way to move the conversation forward is to say, let's play with that idea. Let's play with that idea. So somebody says something about, well, I think that we should have a kiddie carnival for the day. And they're like, okay, let's play with that. What kind of things do you see happening at this carnival? So before it even moves into emotion, before it moves forward, it gets the whole Grange working together and thinking together in a collaborative environment where no answer is wrong. And so if in step one, you set up a positive attitude for your meeting to say, you can lay out the rules ahead of time and say, we're going to have a discussion tonight. Every answer is a good answer. Somebody's going to be taking notes tonight on this meeting that we're having. Of course, your secretary is, but maybe somebody else is as well. And we're going to set up this collaborative environment so everybody can be involved tonight. I think that's a great way to get conversations flowing. Nobody is a master at everything, and nobody's a beginner at everything either. So it's a great way to let the beginners and the masters work together to create a collaborative, fun, playful environment. Okay, are there any questions on play? No? Okay, moving on. Next is make their day, and I'm not talking like, oh, make my day. But it's a way of engaging with your members. You can make people's day by personalizing meetings, by making people feel needed, important, and necessary, and allow members to step up, by engaging with and listening to members and non-members, and remembering that kindness rules all. Making their day is a personalized approach to meetings. It's understanding how you want to be treated as a person and treating other people the same way, or understanding how other people want to be treated. I know there are many people who are huggers and there are non-huggers. There are people who expect a conversation to start with a handshake the first time that they say hello for the night. And there are people who think that handshaking is kind of gross, especially since COVID. It's understanding the way that we interpersonally act with each other. And that kind of goes back to the code switching that we talked about at the beginning. I know how to address Amanda. I know how to address Vic. I know how to address Trisha, because they are people who I interact with. So the goal is to get to know your members on a personal level, know what they need, and know what they expect from you as a leader as well. And that can be starting a conversation to say, what do you expect of me? What do you want me as a leader to bring to these meetings? And then to lay out clear expectations as well for your membership to say, this is what I expect you to bring to a meeting then. And that's a totally fair way. It also can rely on understanding generational differences. The way that my generation as millennials works is very different than the way that Gen Z works, and is very different than the way that the greatest generation and boomers work. We have to understand that the needs that we have in our generations and the things that we bring to the table in our generations are very different from one another, but they're all equally correct. Every member has value. And I think that's the really important thing of making their day. In a business setting, they talk about make their day as approaching your customers. And making sure that your customers feel valued, that I am taking the time to be here and I am here for you and only you in this moment. Make their day by putting your phone down. Make their day by turning off electronics for the length of your meeting. I know personally, I get a little upset when I'm at a meeting and I see, the secretary sitting there scrolling on their phone for part of the meeting, or I've seen presidents sitting there while people are giving presentations and scrolling on their phone. And that's making your members feel like this isn't a valuable use of their time. It's making your presenter feel like it's not a valuable use of their time. And it's questioning what are we here for? Being kind is kind of my slogan, but you can never be too kind to somebody. You never know what somebody's attitude is walking into your meetings. They could have a really crappy day, and you simply saying hello and taking a minute to personalize the day for them and personalize that moment and to be present with them can make all of the difference. And I think it's important to remember that everybody's coming from a different starting point. A new member coming in and voicing an opinion for the first time could be scared to death by what the response would be. So as a Grange leader, as a Grange mentor, to sit there and accept what they're saying and to listen to their different opinion and their different approach to life is important. Rather than shutting down and say, well, we tried that back in 1942 and it failed then, because I've heard, well, maybe not 1942, but I've heard, we've tried it before and it didn't work. So why should we try again? And times have changed and people's understanding of the world has changed. So let's try it again. What can it hurt? It doesn't work. Oh, well, let's move on. And then finally, in Make Their Day, I say, find a simple way to delight people in meaningful, memorable ways and contribute to the well-being of their life. That's somebody knowing that I like my coffee with just a little bit of creamer in it. I don't overwhelm it. When somebody shows up to a meeting and has a coffee for me, I am never happier. Tina knows that because she was my coffee mule at State Grange session last year. And she'd be like, what kind of coffee do you want? I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for taking a moment to understand what I need right now. That could be, if you have a potluck, saying, hey, I made your favorite casserole tonight because I know that you like it and I know that you won't make it for yourself. And a member's going to remember that and remember the way that you made them feel in that moment. And so by choosing your positive attitude, by having a little bit of play in your day, and by personalizing your interactions, you can really make a difference in somebody's life. Okay, any questions about making their day? You're all very quiet. Okay, finally we have be there. And this is asking you to stay present and to focus. Focus on your members in a Grange meeting, focus on your advocacy issues, focus on service, to let your members and the community know that the work that you are doing is important. And this kind of ties right into Make Their Day. It's important to let people know that for this hour and a half of our meeting, I am here. I am ready to work. I am ready to make this happen. It's setting an example for the way that you want the rest of your membership to act. It's setting a positive, uplifting message, an uplifting example. Like I said earlier, your perception of what's happening inside of your Grange halls will affect the perception of what's happening outside of your Grange halls, and will affect the perception of the community looking at your Grange. If they see from the outside that you're a group of hardworking, committed individuals who unite for one cause, who come together to make their communities better in a positive, fun manner, they are more likely to engage with you and to want to join than if they see a couple people yelling at each other while picking up trash on the side of the road, wearing Grange emblems on their back. And they're like, I don't know about that group. They don't seem to like each other very much. But I mean, at least they're helping the environment by picking up trash. There are these ways that we can turn our perception of what's happening inside to the outside by making our meetings meaningful, fun, educational, personalized for our members. That's going to radiate out into the community. If you as a leader set that positive example of wanting to come to Grange meetings, of encouraging your members to participate and to share and voice their opinions, of making your Grange meetings a positive, outgoing place, then that is going to flow out into the community. And while it might not bring in members, at the very least, it might bring in support. It might bring in people seeing your Grange for the first time in a new light, in a new way, and understanding that the work that you're doing in the Grange is important. And I think that's important for us to remember as members, for us to remember as members as well. That what we do is important and will make a difference. I think so often we can get into the habit of going through meetings by rote and understanding or not understanding what we're saying or what we're doing, passing motions just by saying, well, what did we give last year? And keeping that kind of pattern going instead of stopping to say, you know what, the fire company's asking us for money. Let's consider what the fire company's doing. Is the $25 that we've been giving for 10 years making a difference to them? It might be, but can we afford a little more? Can we partner with the fire company in some way to help make their other fundraising efforts a success as well? I think it's important to question what we expect from our Grange and then what others can expect from our Grange. When others see us helping and being on the forward side of making our community stronger, they're going to want to be involved in the work that we're doing. So it's being there for yourself, for your members, for your community. And it's important to let that shine through the work that you're doing. Okay, so that's our four principles. Choose your attitude, play, make their day, and be there. Why? So Grange focuses on people and communities. Understanding an inter and intrapersonal connection within your Grange is important. Understanding the way that your members work, the way that your members approach tasks is important. When a member shows up to volunteer at an event and they say, what can I do? If you as a leader know what they are good at and say, I know that you're really good at this task, so we saved it until you got here. Would you be willing to do this today? And somebody suddenly is like, oh, you noticed that I like doing that? You noticed that I enjoy this? Sure, I'd be happy to. Instead of just saying, oh, I don't know, something, go be useful in another room. It's going to make your members feel less valued if you just send them away, where if you remember the things that they like, the way that they like to be approached, it's going to create that positive attitude, which at this point doesn't sound like a real thing because I keep saying it so often. But it's going to keep that uplifted spirit running through your Grange Hall. So we want you to go fish for members who align with the Grange ideals and challenge you to do more at the same time. While it's nice to have a bunch of yes men behind you as a leader, it's also great to have people who align with the values that we as Grangers hold, but also will kind of call you out on your BS sometimes. And will say, I think we could have done more, or why didn't we approach this problem this direction? Finding Grange members and encouraging your Grange members that you currently have to speak up rather than going home grumbling like, well, we could have given an extra $20 and it wouldn't have hurt us. Or I don't know why we didn't serve potatoes last night instead of just stuffing. Encouraging your Grange members to speak up and say, if they have an idea, share it. If you have something that you want us to do, share it. As Grange leaders, and I'm sure many of you share this philosophy with me, it gets tiring to be the person who constantly feels like they have to be coming up with the ideas. It gets exhausting to be the person who constantly feels like they're pulling people behind them to move your Grange forward and to keep your Grange relevant. And I want you to foster an environment in your Granges. And I'm not saying that nobody's doing this now, because I'm sure we're all trying, but to foster that environment where your members feel like their voice is valued, where their opinions are wanted, and where the things that they say can have a direct effect on their communities. I talk about the West Wing a lot because it's one of my favorite TV shows. There's a moment where they hire a new lawyer or a new counsel for the West Wing, and she comes in and she says an idea to a counselor to the president. The counselor takes the idea to the president. Next thing they know, that it's being enacted, because that's how things work, and that's how things should work in the Grange too. Donna could come in with an idea, tell it to our lecturer makes a motion, president puts it out on the floor and says, do we have any opinions on this? Next thing you know, Donna's idea, where she was just said, I think maybe we could have a picnic for the community. Suddenly the Grange is having a picnic because she thought it would be a great idea. And I want our members to feel empowered to have those ideas. And then, like I said, perception of your Grange is influenced by the attitudes of your members. If your Grange is full of lively, positive people who speak both of the Grange highly and of one another highly, of their communities highly, it's going to affect the way that people are looking at your Grange. And we want to keep that attitude flowing from our Grange members. And the thing is, then the perception of your Grange affects your attitude as well. When your Grange is known for doing great things, people are proud and excited to come to Grange meetings because they know that their community values their work as well. So keeping that kind of back and forth going is important. There's a really thin balance of, we're doing good things and we're proud of it and our community is proud of it. And now you have this great homeostasis going with your community where you are both working for one another. And I think that's really important to have. And your perception shapes your reality. That's what I just said. Okay, so we've got some goals to take away. Make your members want to come to meetings. Create a welcoming environment and allow the external image to match the internal function. And that's through trying to employ these 4 pillars. And I will say, starting all 4 of them at once is really hard and probably a little crazy. So I would recommend choosing one. If you want to start with play, introduce a game into your meeting as the first thing, and people might look at you like you're crazy for a minute because we haven't played games in our Grange since 1994. Take a moment to say, we're going to try something new. Everybody relax. It's not going to hurt any of you. I promise. And just try it and see what happens, and see if your members are suddenly laughing and having a good time. The first thing that you can do is to choose your attitude and to say, whatever your next meeting is, to say, I'm going to walk into this meeting like the happiest person I know, and I'm going to try to keep that attitude, whether it's totally fake or not, because some meetings are like that. Say, I'm going to try to be as positive a person as I possibly can during this meeting, and see if that affects the people around you. Because it certainly will if you walk in as a grumpy Gus, and if you have a sour attitude from the second you walk in and start running a meeting, it's going to rub off on the people around you too. So try to keep that upbeat spirit going. And that's going to rub off on everyone, and it's going to rub off on your random member who's sitting on the sidelines, to make them want to be a part of something. Rather than just coming and being a dues paying member, they see now that things are happening and want to be involved. I suggest potentially starting with make their day. Find that member who is quiet, who you maybe know a little about, and just take a moment to get to know them. Your next social hour, if they're a person who kind of sits off on the side by themselves, or is always hiding in the kitchen, because there are those members too, take a moment to see if they need some help in the kitchen, and say, how can I help you? How can I make your day easier? or sit down with them at the table and say, tell me about your life. Like, what do you do? What do you like? Like, I don't know you well because I usually hang out with that group of people at this meeting, but I want to know you now. And it's going to change somebody's attitude, and it will make their day. And finally, enjoy your work. If you're not enjoying your work as a Grange member, why are you here? Why are you here at this meeting? Why are you still a member? Not that I want to chase anybody away, but you have to look at the work that you're doing. And if you don't find purpose and value in our work, if you're not enjoying the way that you are impacting your community, if you're not enjoying the way that you're working with your members, then why try? You know, throw in that towel, say we've had a good run, and pass on your leadership to the next person to let them try. There is a natural flow of leaders that, you know, there are successors that will come after you. And I think it's important that if you've reached a point where you don't find value in what you're doing anymore, to encourage somebody else to step up and try. So those are the 4 goals that I want you to take out of this. If nothing else, if you forget the principles right away, is to make your members want to come to meetings, or events or fundraisers or whatever it is you're doing. Meetings are not the be all end all of Granges. I know there are people who do not do meetings, but there are people who will show up to work your events. Create a welcoming environment for new members and existing members. It's important to foster and remember the relationships that we have with the members that we currently have and the members that have sustained our organization for 150 years. Legacy is important. The members that you have are important, but it's also important to say we need new members to survive. Allow the external image of your Grange to match the internal function, and vice versa, because if there's currently a negative perception of that creepy old building up on the hill that gets used once a month, turn that around and say, we're going to bring the community in. We are going to let the great work that we're doing inside of this building flow out into our community and change that perception of what your Grange is, and then enjoy what you're doing. And so we're going to end on this fisherman while I say, are there any questions?
I'm going to
Okay.
break the
How
ice
about
on a
statements?
question over here.
Yeah.
That was Joe Mizak over at Pioneer Grange #1 out of New Jersey. That was a fantastic talk, and that was what we would say in the professional industry. That was world-class information that you gave out. Which is, no, don't laugh about it. It's really true. If you go to any of these retreats, they would send you all these places all over the world, and those are basic business fundamentals for running a business, personal life goals, anything. But you're right, they should be put into the Grange. The Grange should be leaders in the community. A lot of times when you're in the kitchen cooking, you don't realize what a great chef you are. You are making this happen, and people from the outside can see this, and you don't see it in yourself. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for forcing us to look in ourselves and see what we're doing.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah, Pete.
Well, I want to piggyback on what Joe said, because I was going to, you know me, I'll brag on Granges when I can. And I have no problem engaging people and asking questions. But I think with Joe on from Pioneer in Jersey and Danny on from Southern in Jersey, and with John's mentorship, they're doing this now. We are seeing it work in the state of New Jersey with 2 Granges that, you know, have picked it up, and they're living what you told us tonight. I truly believe that. I mean, Pioneer just had a line dancing program at their Grange with 43 people, probably the biggest event they've had in a long time, because they are changing the perception of their organization in Dayton, New Jersey. And trust me, Dayton, New Jersey is not a real rural area. And Danny's Grange, same thing. You know, they are changing their perception, as you said. And we're seeing, John's seeing, the leadership in New Jersey is seeing the benefits of what you just talked about tonight, of Granges that are picking this up and doing this. And I appreciate them being on. And finally, because you know me, once I get talking, I don't like to stop. I can't wait, and I can't wait to meet this person, but I can't wait to hear what Victor says about this, because I'm watching Roy Grange in Washington and seeing what they're doing, and they're picking this up now. And Vic's not giving them a chance to slow down. And I don't know about the rest of her members, but I know she is personally changing the perception of their Grange in Washington. And so I can't wait to see where they go. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can stop looking at that lovely fisherman. So the fish principles. So when I read the book, it is geared toward corporate America. It's not the freshest read if you want to pick it up. It is available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I do suggest using your local bookseller instead of, you know, the major companies. But it is geared toward corporate America. There are lots of storytelling elements of it because, like I said, it is a parable, but it is a good read. And of course, it goes more into depth of everything that I just talked about. It gives some more examples of the way that you're able to work and to use things to apply these elements one at a time. In the book, that's what she does, is that she takes one element at a time and applies it to their workplace. And the other thing that I would encourage that you do is potentially take these 4 elements into your Grange and say, what suggestions do you have for us to implement these? So I just said to Sharon in the chat, I'm going to put this up on YouTube like I do all the other membership matters. So you can show the video, show the slides, talk through step by step. I also wrote about this in Patrons Chain a couple weeks ago. So talk through step by step of these things and say, how can we apply these to our Grange? Where do you see that we are lacking in any of these elements? Or where do you see that what we're doing can be improved? Where do you see our work needs more choosing your attitude? Where do you see our work needs more of making their day? And let your members be a part of the conversation. It's hard to be that one leader who's trying to change everything without having the conversation with other people. So if Amanda and I were going to the same meeting, I might say to her, this is the meeting that we're going to start choosing our attitude, and we're going to go in and we're going to be positive, and we're going to keep that smile on our face for the entire meeting, whether it hurts us or not. Because I think it's important that somebody else is in on the plan with you. You can't do it alone. And if you try to do it alone, it's going to hurt. And there will be some rough moments. And even if you're doing it with a group, if you bring your officer team together and say, all of us are doing this together, you can't, as the 13 officers, 17 officers, however many you have in your Grange, your officer corps can be the ones to say, we're going to start doing this, and hope that other members catch on. You can do it in that I wouldn't say underhanded, but subtle, way of, it's a sly, we're going to do this and see who notices. Or you can be forward with it and say, we're going to make a conscious effort as our Grange to be the positive attitude that our community needs. And you can say, we're going to be the Grange that's known for having fun activities for the community. We're going to be that playful Grange. Whether it's haunted houses and hay rides, or it's summer picnics and fun fairs, you can make that perception and you can edit the way that your community looks at you, but you can't do it alone. And you could also set this up at the state level. You could set this up at the Pomona level to say, I challenge all the Granges in our Pomona to adopt these attitudes. I challenge all of the Granges in our state. I challenge our state officer corps to set the positive attitude for the state Grange and to set the attitude that I want our members to follow. I think those things are important too, to take this presentation to your state officers, to state leadership council, whoever it is, to say, let's see how we as a state Grange can incorporate these, to encourage the other Granges that follow our example to also adopt these practices. Okay, that's all I got.
So I appreciate, Phil, that you just noted that positivity in the Grange is almost like a gym membership, that you have to take a friend or else you might not be held accountable. So
Judy, you started to ask a question.
So I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I was late. I was in another meeting, but I
That's fine.
really enjoyed your lecture and your workshop. As a preschool teacher, I always encourage play. So it was really nice to hear you talking about it with the adults. And we did, I try to do it in our Grange. We had a cooking contest or a dessert contest for all of our members. And it was a really, really fun event. And everybody really enjoyed it. So like, it's so fun to get everybody up and active. And a lot of people really, really love it. So thank you for sharing.
And one thing I want to encourage everybody to do, when you have an event, a lecture item, a program, something that went really well for you, send it to me, send it to Amanda, and send it to Ann Bircher. Because the three of us can use Ann Bircher, if you don't know, national lecturer, she's really awesome. We can use your ideas and put them out through Patrons Chain, through the A Quarter's Worth newsletter, through Good Day, through various means. Amanda might just send it out randomly to somebody. It can go on our social media to say, look at what, I mean, Pete will certainly share it in the community service group, to say, look at what Granges are doing. Granges are always looking for programs and ways to have more fun. So to see something, I want to know more about that dessert contest because that sounds delicious. So to see those people having successful programs, I think is really important for Granges around the country too.
So if you hear any of that noise, I have an awning being put up over where our propane furnace thing goes out. And so I'm really glad that I didn't have to present tonight because that would have been really irritating this whole time. Luckily it's a friend who's doing it and he's willing to be out here late at night after his actual job, but you guys would not have appreciated it. So I can't thank Phil enough for the timing of this and for doing this workshop. I hope you guys got something out of it. I hope you felt like it was a useful interlude to some of our normal stuff. As you know, we have Grange month next month. Phil just covered that, and we'll be on here the second Tuesday. I wanted to talk a little bit about using the momentum of Grange month, or any time that you've got some specific momentum going, for kind of using it as your lift off. Knew this would happen. Sorry. And I'm hoping that we won't have any of that going, right? In the meantime, I'm going to mute myself and let you guys, if you'd like to stick around and chit chat with each other, hang out for a little while. I don't want you to have to hear all that. And then hopefully we'll see you back in a month and we will have another 1-question survey going out with the reminder about the meeting. So look for that. Feel free to use these questions and kind of, reword them a little bit for your Grange, to start a conversation in your Grange. And I think this one was a good one to talk about as a conversation starter of, if your entire Grange is saying it's time to, throw in the towel, or if your entire Grange is admitting that the only way to survive is through change, it's time to start down the road of discussion from either one of those viewpoints. So I really encourage you to take these questions, these 1-question surveys, and use it as conversations points for your Grange. And we'll see you again in a month.